This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. I am talking about a movie called Pledge, which was recently on Hulu, and this is an awesome movie. And growing up, a very formative, borderline horror movie for me was a movie called The Hazing. I remember it not very well, though what I do recall was that it revolved around 2 or 3 guys who were pledging this frat, and they were hazed. The Hazing kind of makes sense as a title. But I don't even know what to call the genre, really, because, for instance, I believe Black Christmas, well, being a horror film, revolves around similar things. Be it sorority or fraternity, there's a certain subgenre of horror films or thrillers that revolve around that particular aspect. In any case, I find that few of them makes you think as much as The Pledge does. The Pledge revolves around 3 dudes who would probably be considered not terribly popular, very geeky, overweight, black in certain instances. So these 3 guys are getting rejected by other frat houses. And they stumble upon, well, they're led to this other frat house. Well, what they assume is a frat house, rather. And from that point on, violence ensues as they believe they're pledging this house. And they're made to do very scary things sometimes, and very dangerous things as well. Now, it's so reflective of modern society, Pledge is, and that's part of what makes it so good. I mean, for instance, there was a part of the film where the pledges were branded. I've seen people with brands, with Greek brands on their arms all the time. It's not that unusual. But in the context of the movie, it's made terrifying. And there's also the whole aspect of pledging where the idea to build, supposedly, to build brotherhood and connection, you have to demean yourself or demean others. And Pledge revolves around that a lot. And I guess, for me, that's what's so scary about the movie. It's not I should say most that goes on, because it goes a little bit over the line towards the end. But most that goes on in this movie is not beyond what actual pledge houses do. And that's what's scary for me. It's that what they do to these 4 or 5 young people, there are 3 we meet originally, but there are others that are pledging this house as well. So I think it comes to a total of about 6 people. What they do to these people is truly terrifying. But if you followed the news in the last few years, this is not, people dying from pledging is not unusual. It's tragic, it's sad, it should never happen, but the point being, it does happen. And sure, it doesn't happen quite in the graphic manner as it does in this movie. Well, as far as I'm aware, I should say. It doesn't happen in quite the graphic manner that it happens in this movie, but as I said, it does happen. And in the movie, you kind of wonder why they don't just leave. And eventually they try to leave, but why they didn't leave before things got apeshit crazy. And that's the thing, though. There's peer pressure. There's the need to be more than what you are. There is fear of what others may think. There's the whole masculine thing. There's all sorts of reasons why people don't leave those situations before they get, in some instances, tragic. But it does happen. And so the fact that these people do not immediately leave, or at least very soon leave, it irritated me, to be totally honest with you, because I can't speak for anyone else, but my tolerance of nonsense is relatively low. Couple that with actual physical pain, it doesn't even rate. I get angry very quick and don't want to deal with that. So that these people stuck it out, it makes sense to me. It's perfectly logical. And also, I didn't mention before, but the idea that these people are far from home, they don't have the traditional networks that they would normally rely on to hopefully keep them out of such situations. They're depending on each other, and no one, at least initially, stood up. So, though, as I said earlier, it doesn't jump the shark at the end, but the violence gets so out of hand that that whole realism aspect is slightly lost. But it's a minor point because the whole movie just flows. It works really well. It's really efficient. And the ending is brilliant. I kid you not. And I won't tell you what it is. Pledge is not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination. As I said, it gets a little over the top towards the end. The characters are a little too stereotypically geeks. And the idea that you outnumber, this is a problem I see oftentimes in movies of this nature, not only dealing with pledging anything, but the idea that a bunch of people will outnumber their aggressors, yet the aggressor will still dominate them. I find that a difficult concept, especially the more towards reality you get, the less realistic that is, because at some point, I don't care how tough you actually are. Again, you could be a fucking ninja. It's the idea that you're outnumbered so severely that it doesn't matter. Just by sheer force of numbers, your opponent will beat you. They could be skillless. It's virtually irrelevant. And the same thing applies to some extent for this movie, in that the pledges tend to outnumber their aggressors by at least 2 to 3 different individuals. So the idea, and the movie, again, is very well done, but they never attack them en masse because movie. That aspect doesn't quite work. And then again, it's a minor nitpick because if they had let's say all 6 of these guys, when shit got real, started to rush their attackers and literally pummeled them to death, it'd be a short movie. So obviously they can't take that route, though that would be likelier to be the more realistic route. And that's not really true because, again, I shouldn't say it's not true, as in it's not exactly something you can say with any certainty, because there have been many instances of one individual or 2 individuals or relatively few individuals controlling a massive amount of individuals, whether on a micro or macro stage. In any case, Pledge is great. I would say it's more of a thriller, a slow burn thriller than a horror movie, but once it gets, actually I would say Pledge is a horror movie. Once it gets going, things start to go off the rails and out of anyone's control, it gets really interesting and really horrific. It's not terribly gory, and it's not even that violent, but it's very intense, and when there is violence, it's taken seriously, and it is no joke. So, if you have not seen Pledge, definitely check out. It's really good, well worth catching. It's on Hulu. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com.